What's up everyone? Lance Hedrick here, and today we're gonna talk about these saucy minxes and how they're lying to us. Now, understandably, one of the first recommendations that many people getting into espresso is to purchase a naked portafilter. Apart from the fact that it has a very saucy name, it's also a bit of a liar. It tells us things that we misinterpret all the time. In fact, sometimes it tells us stuff that means nothing, red herrings. You can kind of see if you're having an unlevel tamp or if maybe the distribution in the puck is abysmally bad. But in reality, once you get further and further into espresso, you start to read too far into things that you're seeing. And that's kind of what I want to focus on today, that what you're seeing is not telling you the truth. It's telling you something, but it may not really mean very much. Now, I understand the initial recommendation to pick one of these up, and I know a lot of you have had improved experiences with your espresso due to the purchase of these, so I'm not trying to negate your experience, because I do think when you're beginning, it can help you get on the right path. But that's kind of where it stops being super effective. Whenever you don't have something like this on the bottom, you're able to see what's going on during the extraction. You can see some of the extraction dynamics at play, and you can fix or correct whatever you're doing in your preparation technique, whether it's an uneven tamp or whether it's bad distribution or whatever it might be. But I'm here to tell you that, for the most part, that's not actually telling you that. Just like with any kind of rule or any type of thing when you're beginning espresso, you should start by doing a 1-to-2 ratio in 30 seconds. That is not a rule you should keep forever. You need to break that rule. And the same thing happens with naked portafilters. Now, you've probably noticed in many of my videos, I don't do really close-up shots of espresso extracting. I'll do it sometimes, but it's because I just can't stomach some of the comments. I'm gonna be honest with you. People who don't understand that there's a nuance here, especially when you get further and further into espresso. The looks do not matter that much. And since I have almost predominantly really lightly roasted coffees in my studio, I don't really ever have something that'll pull that voluptuous looking shot. They're gonna be a bit uglier to the beauty standard that we've come to know over the last 40 years or so. The perfect shot. When it comes out and it's voluptuous, it's viscous, oh my God, that is so beautiful. It's gonna taste delicious. There's no way that won't taste good. Well, I've got bad news for you. You can pull a shot like this without any puck preparation, with a very light tamp, with whatever you want, as long as you have freshly roasted coffee that might be on the darker side of the moon. When you have a darker coffee, especially if it's freshly roasted, you have a ton of CO2 that was created in the roasting process, and it's causing a lot of viscosity to be released during that extraction process. The more viscosity, the more those streams are gonna want to come together in order to form that one stream. The more surfactants you have, the more you're going to have that beautiful looking shot. The darker it is, the fresher it is, the less likely any channel is going to actually show up. If you have a little stream of a channel, but you have really thick surface tension coming out of that portafilter, you're likely not going to overwhelm that surface tension with little sprays. Little sprays also don't necessarily mean channeling. You could have blockades in the holes in your basket that is causing kind of a little squirt coming out of the side because you don't have full flow coming out of it. Prove to me there's channeling there. You can't prove it. You could have a delicious shot with spraying everywhere. You're gonna have a shot that looks like this, which is a much lighter roasted coffee. It still looks pretty good, but very quickly that puck is going to disintegrate and you're going to get things that look like channels. They could be channels, or more likely it's just heterogeneous extraction, which happens in every puck of coffee ever to exist in the history of time. You will never have a homogeneous extraction. You only have more or less heterogeneous. Yes, you can have more or less channels, but heterogeneity is going to be a blanket term in every shot of extraction you'll ever prepare. Now, if you were in my studio recently when I was pulling all these shots for those videos I've done, which have a lot of data, the shots were not very pretty, but they're very consistent. Because I work with professors who are physicists or chemists or even a professor of statistical methodology, in order to present that data in a way that's easy for them to manipulate, I really needed to get up to snuff with Google Sheets. So I used Skillshare, which happens to be the sponsor of today's video. Skillshare is an incredible online resource where thousands of people have created courses, whether they're artists, whether they're different types of creatives, whether they're data scientists. I used it for this Google Sheet class by Robert Reed, which was very helpful for me. Now, Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, and it has a world-class community that connects teachers with their members. There's also a really cool thing they've introduced called learning paths, where they get maybe a subject that you're really interested in. Let's say it's like DSLR photography, and they put different courses in order from beginner to where you need to get to, so that you have a very intuitive way so you can march forward with your understanding of that topic. I have some DSLR cameras, obviously. What we're filming on is DSLR. So I'll be taking some of those classes in order to improve my own photography. So if something like that seems exciting to you, or you have any type of skill that you're wanting to learn, invest in yourself this year and learn that new skill, inform your new passion, and use the link down below. The first 500 that uses my link down below in the caption will receive 1 month free of a Skillshare membership. And you can learn about whatever you're interested in for the most part. It's the largest online community for this. But anyway, thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Let's get on with my diatribe. Look how beautiful that extraction looks. And it's because of the viscosity. We're not gonna see any of these channels. But the puck prep was abysmal, and we're having heavy channeling in the center. But when you think about it, that heavy channeling is being covered by the under-extracted edges that are still releasing that viscous goodness near the end because it's been under-extracted. So it's not as far in the extraction process as that middle part of the puck is, but we don't see it because it's being covered up by that thick viscous fluid. What we're doing with puck preparation, with better grinders, with all these different things, is to lessen the heterogeneity. We want as even of an extraction as possible. For the longest time, we were taught that we should stop our espresso when it starts to blonde, during the blonding phase. What the heck does blonding even mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means that you have less insolubles leaving the portafilter, meaning there is washing going on during the extraction process. With darker roasted coffees, a ton more fines are produced, and so those fines and a lot of these particles can get through. They're dark because coffee was roasted darkly, and so they're getting through, they're affecting the color of that coffee. But on top of that, you have this inverse relationship between concentration of coffee and watery, or less concentration of coffee, that goes on during the extraction. So at the beginning, you have huge viscosity, you have a high concentration of coffee, low concentration of water. As that extraction continues, that relationship inverses. It goes completely in the opposite direction. You have a lower concentration of coffee coming out and a higher concentration of water. And this is flipping the color. So if you're someone drinking really dark coffee, it might still be a decent barometer to stop your shot. But for anything other than a really dark roast, it's not very helpful. In fact, really lightly roasted coffees look pretty blonde the whole extraction all the way through. The difference will be the thickness of the stream coming out. So with lighter coffees or with aged coffees, you may not get a center stream, and that doesn't mean it's a bad shot. Lighter coffees, during the roasting process, nowhere near as much CO2 is being produced, and the pores are a whole lot smaller, and so it's much more difficult for you to get that kind of immediate viscosity created. You're not getting as much oil production, you're not getting as much of that kind of surfactants that are coming out in order to maintain, to stabilize that liquid that is being released from the basket. And so it's going to be difficult for it to want to converge. Now it may, the longer you pull a shot, it will eventually find its way because even water surface tension is strong enough to pull that. But if you're pulling shorter shots, like a 1-to-2 ratio, 1-to-3, or if it's a 20-second shot, 25-second shot, it may not come to the center. And that doesn't mean it's a bad pull. And with aged coffees, you're losing a lot of carbon dioxide as it's aging, which is one of the main things that is giving back pressure during espresso extraction. You'll notice 4 weeks after you pulled your first shot with it, if you still have that coffee, you'll have to go a lot finer. And it's because you're not getting that added resistance from the CO2 release. You have lost a lot of it in the aging process. Now you need to go finer to compensate for the lack of CO2. This is the IMS nano-coated whatever basket, and this coating on it makes it very slick and makes it a bit hydrophobic. One basket with the same exact ratio and recipe, we can get this beautiful looking stream. Now we pull with the IMS and look at that. There are areas that look like it's bald, but in reality, that's not necessarily what's going on. You have thin kind of espresso being pulled out of it, but it's showing a different color. Fluid dynamics are very difficult to understand, and only a few people in the world understand it. And I'm sure some of the people in the comments are professionals at that and can maybe explain a bit more there, but I'm just gonna get across the point that whenever you have different variables at play, like the coating of your basket, you're gonna have a different variable at play when it comes to the optics, and it may not be super helpful. Now, this is what people refer to as a donut shot, where the edge of the basket is saturated first before the center gets filled out. People go, oh my goodness, I got over extraction on the edges of my basket. Woe is me, how do I fix this? I need to get a convex tamp. That's what I need to do, and that'll fix it. Well, yeah, optically it can fix it. It'll make it look like everything comes more evenly. What you're getting with these more standard baskets is there is not enough room for all the espresso being extracted to escape. The top part of this is much wider than the bottom. Typically, it's 46 to 48 millimeters of escape space on the bottom of a basket, 58 millimeters at the top. So you have like 10 millimeters of diameter where there's nowhere for that coffee being extracted to escape. So they join their buddies on the inner layer, and they're like, all right, we're gonna have to use your holes to get out. So you have double the amount of liquid trying to escape, so of course it's gonna come out earlier. I mean, hello, it's probably a better sign of a decent extraction. If you didn't have a donut shot, you're probably getting more extraction in the center, a lot more extraction in the center than on the edges. And in fact, a study I've shown many times here, but I'll put it in the caption below, by Stephan Ribes, someone who is in the decent community, he did a little experiment where he was taking cookie cutters of different diameters and he was measuring the leftover solubles in the grounds. And he actually found out that you have lower extraction on those edges, even with donut shots. Logic would say, oh, the edges are coming first. The edges are more exposed to water. The edges are extracting too much. No. It's lying. I don't like it. I don't like to be lied to, okay? Now, another example, an even more obvious example, are these new kind of fancy baskets. These have a bigger space on the bottom, so it's a little more difficult for all of this surface area to want to come to the center. They're not being kind of forced into the center by having less surface area to escape. Baskets are usually built with really thin walls, and so they bend quite a bit. And that also allows for the drawing of the liquid to the center. But with a thicker basket, with a wider hole, a wider spread, it makes sense that it's not going to come out into the center. Look at that. You don't see a bend. So portafilters are lying to you. They're not your best friend. They're not telling you, hey, I'm naked. That's a good word. I know. Freud loves that word. If you have a pool that looks like this, where it's all centered on one side, that's likely telling you you've tamped unlevel and you have more coming out on one side. It could also mean that your espresso machine is tilted or something along those lines. So that might be a bit helpful. If we're trying to understand the effects of a grinder on extraction or of a distribution technique on extraction, we can use the same dial, same grind size, and we can look at when these holes down here get saturated. And we can say, okay, it took 6 seconds when I was using WDT before I saw droplets down here. And they seemed a little bit uneven, a little splotchy, and then they kind of filled in. When I did this other type of distribution, say the shaker, it took a little bit longer for all of those holes to kind of become saturated, but they were very even. And it was like immediate. Right when I saw one little bubble, I saw them all, right? You can kind of understand from that aspect. But as far as during the shot, if you have a spray, if you have, a bald spot, if you have donuts, if you have all these different things, it's not telling you what you think it is. I like to watch it when I'm doing lever shots because I like to see, how quickly I'm saturating the puck, and it gives me a good idea of grind size. It also tells me a bit about the coffee. So depending on how fast it's saturating, some coffees may want to saturate faster than others, or some grinders have a certain puck resistance that's causing the effect of the saturation earlier or later. There's kind of this pride thing that goes on these forums online about, look how beautiful this shot is. I nailed it first try. We have an environment that's been set up around this shared understanding of naked portafilters. But hopefully we just kind of crash through that with Miley Cyrus's Wrecking Ball. At least that's the hope, all right? So next time you pick up a naked portafilter, I hope this Diddy kind of plays in your head. It's, we used to be best buddies, but now we're not. I wish you wouldn't tell so many lies. But do you want to pull espresso? I now understand your secrets, you saucy minx. Go by your taste buds. Trust the process. Trust your distribution in the puck. Trust the tamp. And then work on that. If it's not tasting good, don't worry about how it looks for the most part. Now, I don't want people to skip to this part and say, oh my God, Lance just said that the looks don't mean anything at all. No, I gave you tips on how you can use these looks in order to make a tasty espresso. I gave you tools that you can implement while using these in order to understand the flow of the espresso. But going solely off the looks, going solely off of a squirt, going solely off of a donut, is not helpful. And in fact, it could lead you down the paths of unrighteousness. Okay, you want to choose wisely. You don't want to choose poorly like in the Temple of Doom, all right? We want the goblet that is more humble looking. We don't need the flashy ones. Let's start a new trend, which is ugly shots. Pull a shot, if it tastes good and it's ugly as homemade sin, post it anyway and troll everyone. The troll brigade, all right? That's what I want to see. It's already happening on the Espresso Aficionado Discord for the most part. Those jokers are pulling soup shots with like 5 milliliter second flow rates and just letting it yeet. So I would actually recommend, if you're doing that, grab a spouted portafilter. The heresy. Grab that, then you don't have as much cleanup and you're good to go. You can pull a 15-second turbo shot and it's going to spray, especially the lighter the roasted coffee you have, but it's gonna taste really daggum good. Now, you may not get a lot of sprays because you may be using a darker roast, and good on you, that's fine. I don't care what roast level you drink. What I do care about is misinformation. And when you keep pushing this idea of channel-free espresso, of homogeneous extraction, of the better the looking pull, the better the tasting espresso, I'm coming for you. Let's just hold hands and let's make espresso that tastes good. Let's work on our efficiency, yes. Let's work on our distribution, yes. Let's use naked portafilters for what they can do. So let's not elevate this to the status of something that's going to lead us down the paths that rock, because it likely won't. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that you enjoyed kind of the more stripped down diatribal nature of this. If you didn't, I understand, not for everyone. If you did, hit the like and subscribe, it would be really great. So I think that's about it. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and thank you all for supporting the channel by just watching this video. I do have a Patreon below if you want to check out, where we have a Discord connected and we do some giveaways there, some like through competitions with a lot of different equipment. I have a second YouTube channel where I do more rant stuff, which is probably more in this style. And yeah, I think that's about it. I hope that you brew something tasty today, preferably not worshiping the naked portafilter. And cheers.